Due to the time constraints imposed by the International Pwnage Olympic Committee, this is a response to just a small portion of BereanBeacon's video, Termites Place Hex on Evolution. I'll be referring to you as BB for the purposes of this response, so I hope you don't take offense, but if you do feel so inclined, then I'd hold off until you see the rest of the video, because I can assure you that my little nickname for you is going to be the least of your worries. And as for the rest of your rectally inspired reasoning in this feast of televisual craptitude, do rest assured that I'll be cramming it back up your jacksie with a rusty crowbar in an upcoming episode of my Holy Hallucinations series. But for now, let's take a look at what you had to say about that stale and rancid puddle of creationist vomit known as the Life Science Prize while I go and fetch my plunger.
They could easily shut down us creationists by simply taking Dr. Mastropaulo's challenge and defeat him. If they have any evidence, they could bring us to an embarrassing halt as creationists. They could silence our voice. They could make us look like morons.
Of course, it wouldn't take a scientist accepting this challenge to make creationists look like morons, because they've been doing a bang-up job of that themselves for over a century. And if you don't believe me, then just take a look at some of the many fine examples of stupendous fuckwittery from your fellow mentally castrated intellectual eunuchs right here on YouTube.
Yeah, Darwin did just make it up, because here's the thing. You don't have any proof of evolution. Okay? You have no proof. You have no fossils that suggest that humans and apes have a relation. You have none. None. There's not one. You haven't found one yet. Not one intermediate creature. Not one. Not one intermediate creature from any creature. Nothing. Not one animal. Not one intermediate creature of a bug. Nothing. You have nothing.
70 years, millions of experiments. I think we've qualified this through the scientific method, don't you? By experimentation, we need to go back, the point in the scientific method where the results do not support the hypothesis. We go back and discard the hypothesis, you see. But evolutionists won't do that. Evolution must be true. See? So, forget the 70 years of mutation experimentation. That doesn't mean nothing. See? That's how evolutionists think. See? Doesn't matter to them. Their paradigm is true. It's got to be true. Evolution true. Got to be true.
But they're trying to say things like gravity is a theory, not a law. They're trying to say, oh, time is an illusion. No, gravity is a law established. I mean, look at this. That's gravity. We never see goo to you evolution happening ever. All we see are variations within the kinds. Changes within species happen. But Darwin didn't write a book called How Species Change. He talked about the origin of species.
The basic concept of evolution is that in the beginning there was nothing, and suddenly a miraculous event occurred. A huge lightning bolt struck the water, electrifying and jump-starting our great to the billionth power grandfather's brain-like piece of slime, much like a heart defibrillator or the awakening of Frankenstein's monster. Do I get that part right?
So now, let's get back to the challenge. Firstly, let me point out that your faith in your apparent hero, Joseph Mastropaulo, is as misplaced as your faith in your pitifully childish and patently fallacious fairy tales. You see, it seems that the good doctor is a kinesiologist with a PhD in the field, although according to his entry in Creation Wiki, not a particularly good one, since his record of 6 peer-reviewed publications in an academic career of over 26 years is about as impressive as a pair of hamster testicles dangling off a bull elephant. So while this may qualify him to comment on the correct posture for a creationist to adopt while talking endless wank to avoid a case of terminal brain strain, it hardly fosters confidence in his ability to debate the veracity of evolutionary theory with even a moderately qualified biologist. I strongly suspect that if such a debate ever took place, he'd be picking the shrapnel out of his arse for a year afterwards. Secondly, it took me just 5 minutes to find 2 published accounts of exactly how Mastropaulo and his slimy henchmen reacted when biology professors Michael Zimmerman and none other than Richard Dawkins probed them by pretending to be interested in a debate. It was more than amusing to read how their enthusiasm dried up faster than a suspicious stain on a priest's trousers after choir practice when anyone even vaguely resembling an unbiased and/or qualified adjudicator was suggested. The desperation in their frenzied attempts to extricate themselves from the possibility of being called on their bullshit was nothing short of palpable despite the liberal seasoning of false bravado. From just these two accounts, it should be more than blindingly obvious to anyone whose brain isn't seeping out of their anal sphincter that Mastropaulo has no intention in participating in a debate. This particularly odious and dishonest little reptile uses the facade of a genuine challenge to publicize his intellectually indefensible position, and this is no more evident than the fact that anyone who declines to participate in his charade is automatically adjudged to have lost the debate by default. As a result, he's collected more so-called victories than an evangelical preacher has venereal diseases and proudly displays his dishonesty on his webpage, presumably either because he's too stupid to realize exactly how big a douchebag this makes him look like, or because he thinks it's okay to be a lying tosspot as long as you're doing it for Jesus. So aside from this being a tactic I might expect from an intellectually subnormal 5th grader, it's also one of the most underhanded and reprehensible kinds of behavior imaginable. If this is the kind of lying pustule you need to fall back on to cling onto your primitive superstitions, BB, then perhaps you need to ask yourself whether they're really worth clinging to. Because from where I'm standing, it appears that you're tossing the very things that your religion is supposed to stand for into the same cesspit that Joseph Mastropaulo is wallowing in, and in the process demonstrating quite clearly that your beacon is running only on a 5-watt bulb.